Listening skills are very important. This is where language begins for most of us. If you think of an infant, if you think of a child learning a language, the first stage of that language development is listening, and it's receptive, it's passive. And this can be true for students too. If you're moving towards communication, listening is such an important skill. You can imagine a person with a very well-developed question who's not prepared to hear an answer. Speaking without listening doesn't go too far. Okay, we just learned some words for names of jobs. What jobs do you remember? This is a listening lesson. We can generate a lot of language before the listening begins. Because in a real life situation, you're going to have a certain set of expectations before you go into a listening situation. The lesson begins with a big picture. And the big picture is a great way to provide the context to set up the listening and to give a little preview of some of the words that students are going to hear in that listening activity. To set up the listening, we want to make a lot of references to the big picture. It's a vocabulary-rich kind of picture where there are all the occupations that we're going to be listening to, talking about. Who fixes the lights? You're pulling vocabulary, you're pulling pronunciation, you're pulling grammar structures out of the big picture. Electrician, huh? Electrician. Yeah. Who clears the tables?
Busboy.
A busboy. Mm-hmm. For our first listening activity, in a very non-threatening way, we want students to be able to understand the general sense of what's happening in this conversation or dialogue or story, whatever it is. We're going to listen to a tape.
Listen. Circle the words you hear.
You're not worried about listening for every word and understanding every word, but you are struggling to get the context and to get the general meaning and the general idea of what's going on.
What did he do before? He was a construction worker.
Okay. What words did you hear? I want to volunteer to come and circle. What did you hear? Listening is actually a very threatening thing for a lot of students. Students are convinced that they don't listen well, and they're a little anxious when they listen. They are afraid that they're not getting it. What we want to do is create a very non-threatening environment so that listening is very comfortable. And one way we can do this is to sequence the listening so that they're listening for more and more. We give them more than one opportunity to listen. Do we need to listen again?
Yes.
Okay, let's listen again.
Circle the words you hear. Conversation A.
What does she do?
She's a teacher.
Really?
Conversation E.
What does he do?
Now, he's an electrician.
What did he do before?
He was a construction worker.
He's a manager at a restaurant.
Really? What did he do before?
He was a cashier.
Cashier. Okay. Are we okay now? Is this right? No? Which one is wrong?
Receptionist.
Receptionist?
Yeah.
No?
No.
No receptionist. Okay, very good. Let's take this out. Good. Let's look at page 97. That's followed by an activity where they are looking at different pictures and they have to actually match a set of pictures to a conversation that they hear, which is a little more detailed listening. Construction worker. And what's the big picture in number one? And we give them opportunity to listen for different things. And so the listening just builds and it grows and grows and they get more and more. And it's okay to listen to something repeated times because they're getting more and more out of it and in a very comfortable way. Electrician. Electrician. Now, we're going to listen to these conversations and you're going to put the letter in the box.
A. Listen. Circle the words you hear. Conversation A.
What does she do?
She's a teacher.
Really? What did she do before?
She was a waitress.
Is it number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4? Number 2. So we're going to put a in the box. Do you understand? All right. How about conversation B? Somebody said number 3. Is this B? Number 5? Maybe we need to listen again. How about conversation C? The last thing I wanted to do was to remind students that they have a CD in the back of their book. Now, in the back of your book, we have, what's this? CD. A CD. Okay. And the listening continues because they can take the CD anywhere and they can listen again. I know some students listen to the CD in the car and they're excited to have the CD, and students tell me that they listen at home, they listen in the car. Students have told me they listen at work, hopefully at break time, and they're developing their listening skills and taking the initiative to work on these skills on their own. There's a certain logical progression in terms of steps for listening. And in my mind, I think of it as before you listen, and then follow-up listening. Listening is always a continuum, and we want to set up a listening task with a context. This is what I call before you listen. And then there's a listening task, which is often a listening for the gist. It's a general listening. And then it moves towards the more detailed, more specific listening, where they listen for specific things. And so there's a logical movement through the exercises.